You know, it's one of the craziest paradoxes out there. Our planet is just covered in water, right? But at the same time, billions of people are facing water shortages. So today, we're going to dive into a technology that does something pretty wild. It literally flips a fundamental law of nature on its head to make our oceans drinkable.
Okay, so here's our game plan. We'll kick things off with just how big this problem is, this whole planet of salt water thing. Then we'll get into the basic science, a really fundamental flow in nature. After that, we'll see how we can actually reverse that flow. And from there, we'll look at how this is being used to make the ocean drinkable. Finally, and this is a big one, we'll talk about the true cost of every single drop.
All right, let's just jump right into the big challenge, the thing that stumped people for, well, forever. We look at a globe, we see all this blue, and we call it the blue planet. But for almost all of human history, that vast ocean has been totally off limits for drinking. So that really is the central question, isn't it? How can we possibly have a water crisis when we live on a water planet? It feels wrong. We are literally surrounded by this enormous resource, but it's like it's locked in a vault, and the key is getting rid of the salt. The answer isn't about finding more water somewhere else, it's all about figuring out how to unlock what's right in front of us. And here's the number that just puts it all into perspective. Get this. 97.5%. That's how much of the Earth's water is salty and undrinkable. That leaves this tiny, tiny sliver of fresh water for all of us. All 8 billion of us. That one number? That's the whole reason this is such a massive challenge.
Okay, so to really get the solution, we first have to understand the problem at a microscopic level. We need to talk about this invisible force that's, well, it's basically running the show in the background of all life. It's even happening inside your own body right now. It's a process called osmosis.
So what is osmosis? At its heart, it's just nature trying to find balance. Water is like a natural peacemaker. It always wants to move to where things are more concentrated, more chaotic, to dilute them. So if you have a really salty side and a less salty side, water is naturally going to float towards the salt to try and water it down. Okay, so let's imagine we've got a special kind of filter separating fresh water on one side and salt water on the other. What's going to happen? Well, just by default, the water is going to start moving through that filter from the fresh side to the salty side. It's this natural, instinctual pull to even things out. That's just how nature works. And that special filter, that semi-permeable membrane, is the real key to everything. The analogy on screen is great. It's like a screen door. Air gets through, but bugs don't. Or my favorite way to think about it is like a bouncer at a really exclusive club. The small, cool water molecules, they can walk right in. But the big, clunky salt molecules, they get stopped at the rope. Sorry, you're not on the list. So, okay, if nature's #1 rule is that water flows towards salt to dilute it, how in the world do we get fresh water to come out of salt water? It seems impossible, right? Well, we have to cheat. We have to find a way to break nature's rules. And that, right there, is where some clever engineering comes into play. So here it is again. This is our starting point, our baseline. Nature doing its thing. The water just naturally flows over to the saltier side. Think of it as a one-way street, and this is the only direction traffic is supposed to go. But what if we decided to fight back? What if we just pushed? Right here, on the salty side. This is the whole trick. If we apply an enormous amount of pressure, we can actually overpower that natural flow. We can literally squeeze the water molecules, forcing them to go the wrong way, down that one-way street, right back through the membrane. And that's the key. We're not just putting the brakes on osmosis. We are literally reversing it. That pressure we're adding is stronger than nature's own pull, so it squeezes the pure water out of the salt solution, leaving all that salt and other gunk behind. It's pretty incredible. Okay, so we've got the science down, right? This idea of reversing the flow. Now let's take that concept out of the lab and see what it looks like in the real world, how it scales up into these huge, sprawling industrial plants that are making the ocean drinkable for millions of people. So how does it actually work? Well, it's basically a 4-step process. First, they just suck in a whole lot of seawater. Next, they have to clean it up, get all the sand and seaweed and stuff out so it doesn't wreck the really important membranes. Step 3, that's the magic moment, the high-pressure reverse osmosis we've been talking about. And then finally, and this might sound weird, they add some minerals back into the water, because it turns out that water that's too pure isn't the best for us or our pipes. Now, this all sounds amazing, like we've solved the world's water problem. But it's not that simple.
This technology is incredibly powerful, for sure, but it isn't a perfect magic solution. Like any giant engineering project, there's a catch. There are some serious costs and challenges we really need to talk about.
And you can see the trade-offs are pretty stark. I mean, on the one hand, what you get is amazing. A source of super high-quality water that doesn't depend on whether or not it rains. It's drought-proof. But on the other hand, my goodness, it takes a ton of energy to run these plants. It creates this nasty, super salty sludge called brine that you have to figure out what to do with. And of course, they cost an absolute fortune to build in the first place.
And I really want to double down on that energy cost for a second. We're not talking a little bit more power here. Desalinating seawater uses way more energy than just treating water from a river. I mean, it makes sense when you think about it, right? You're literally fighting against a fundamental force of nature. That's going to take a whole lot of juice.
So, what's the bottom line here? The big takeaway is that reverse osmosis is an absolutely incredible tool. No doubt about it. We can make undrinkable water drinkable. For places with constant drought, it's a total lifeline. But we have to be honest about what it is. It's an expensive, power-hungry lifeline that has its own environmental price tag. It's powerful, but it's not a silver bullet.
And that really leaves us with a huge question for our future. As this tech gets better and cheaper, what's the right path forward? Do we just keep focusing on these big engineering projects to create more fresh water? Or do we put more of that energy into conserving the fresh water we already have? It's probably a mix of both, but the balance we strike is going to define our future on this water planet.